Okay, my name is Christina Miner. I am a few things. Outside of the mommy and wife, I also, after I had breast cancer, I became a very huge advocate. Prior to that, I am also, and still also, I'm a qualified mental health professional. I own a coaching business as well, but I call it transitional coaching. It's basically, I try to get you before you go into a crisis. And then also outside of that, I do podcasting. So that's been the thing that has kind of birthed out of the whole having breast cancer. And I absolutely love it. I go on and I allow breast cancer survivors, thrivers, metavivors, whatever you call yourself, previvors, come on and share their story. So many times, as we know, when we do interviews and things of that nature, they ask us, what was life like from the start of finding out that you had breast cancer? And they kind of forget that we had a life before breast cancer, during, and now. So I like for when people come on to share their stories, to share all of that, not just from the point of finding out about breast cancer, because it doesn't define us. It is a part of our lives, but it doesn't define us. The other aspect is for caregivers to come on. And it's called Our Scars Speak because it's about our mental and our physical scars speaking a story that doesn't just help us. As the more we tell it, it is therapeutic, but also it can help other people who are healing with their wounds that they may freshly have, or scars that they see that they're embarrassed about. So that's the other aspect of it. The caregivers can come on and share their mental scars, because seeing a loved one, Peggy, as you know, seeing your son and you can't do anything, and you birthed him and you want to be able to protect him for the rest of his life. And when you're fighting something that you can't see, it's very difficult. And it can produce mental scarring that, it can make you become depressed. You don't want to see your child like that or your loved one like that. So those are the scars that they endure. And then having different businesses to come on, that whether they are a nonprofit organization or an actual profitable organization that is helping, though, the breast cancer community and even our medical mental health professionals to come on and share as well. So that's my platform that I absolutely have fallen in love with, because I love hearing people's stories. So so that's who I am in a nutshell. Outside of that, I am also a minister. I've gone in prisons and ministered to people. And I'm just trying to live life and love it at the same time.
You are amazing, girl. You've been helping the minute God put us together.
Yes.
We've been tearing it up, getting the messages out there.
Absolutely. So basically, my journey, my name is Christina Miner, as you already know. And so I'm not going to read the whole thing, but just to kind of give everybody a little, like, life before breast cancer. Life was going great, but I had about almost 20 years that I was going back and forth to the doctor, telling them that something was wrong with the left side, my left breast. And it was like it was falling on deaf ears. I started like at 26, and I told the doctor, they did do a mammogram and he did tell me there was dense tissue. But back then, of course, there was no, oh, you can get an ultrasound. It was sort of like, watch out for this, you have some density. And that was basically it. And I had some fibrocystic tissue. So they were like, that's probably where your pain is coming from. And that was all. Now, after 26, I noticed my nipples started inverting, but then they would pop back out. So then I was told, well, as long as they pop back out, that's okay, but you should be fine. So I was living with this torment in my head that something could really be wrong with that side of my breast. So it was just a constant repeat of trauma every time I went to the doctor to tell them, they always ask, how are you? And you tell them, and it's like falling on deaf ears. And one reason, I will stop and say this though, one reason why I absolutely fell in love with your advocacy work, far as with men, is because when you're different, or when society deems you as being a minority, I don't call myself a minority because I feel like I'm a majority just like everybody else. But when society has you classified as a minority, that, or whatever realm that you're in has you classified as a minority, you have a tendency to not be heard as much. So just like men in the breast cancer world who have breast cancer aren't being heard, it's a relation there that I was like, you know what? I want men to be able to share their story as well on this platform, because it happens to you all as well. And I knew how it felt from a African-American woman to be ostracized, because of color, or you thinking that I don't have education, or whatever the case may be. And it's not just African American, it's not just men. You also have ageism. So there's different things that are out there, but that was one of the reasons why I have been like, when I got in contact with Peggy, I was so grateful, because I want the voices heard. The voices must be heard. So over that time period, I ended up having just a lot of issues, but at the same time, I was enjoying life. For once in my life, I was enjoying life. I had a business down here. Those were my staff. I took them out. My niece had graduated, went to Mexico, went to a concert, and I didn't always enjoy life. So I felt like I was at a very, very good place of entrepreneurship and just living. And then, of course, the pain got worse. But November of 2018, it was like God gave me a word that it was finished. Now, I didn't know exactly what was finished. I felt something was coming. And I held on to that. And I looked up the scripture and I was like, okay, what does that mean? Let me journal this down. And I journaled it down. And it just meant to me. And I'm a woman of faith. Some of you may not be. And my thing is, though, if you aren't or you are, whatever you have in your life that you can hold on to, and when you're going through this diagnosis, hold on to it, whether it be your faith in God, or whether it be your faith in Buddha or the universe, whatever the case may be, hold on to that faith, because you're going to need it. And when I got that word, I began to journal, and it was just basically everything was under the blood of Jesus and was going to be okay. So from there, I ended up starting the process, because in 2019, fast forward, I found a lump. And at that point, I was just like, okay, here it is. Like, finally, there's something tangible that they can feel and know that I'm not losing my mind. I had gone to the doctor prior to 2019. I had gone in 2015, and I had a lot of pain, a pulsating vein, which now I know that can be found with cancer patients. Inverted nipples weren't popping back out. The breast was enlarging like every day. And my doctor had me to do a mammogram and an ultrasound, but the radiologist denied me of the ultrasound. So that was in 2015, and he sent me back home. So 2019, same symptoms, but a little bit worse, because now it's like, it's really, that left side is really swelling. And now I actually am finding lumps that sit in the palm of my hand. So this particular doctor and radiologist, they did the testing, they did the mammograms, as you see, and they did the ultrasound, and they did the biopsy. So I had the first set of biopsies. And when I had that first set of biopsies, it was very interesting, because it didn't come back with any type of findings of cancer at all. And the radiologist was telling me, you know what? We're going to wait for 6 months. There is an area that has a shadow, and then there's another area that has calcifications that might be cancer, but it kind of doesn't look like it. And she said, it looks like the same ones from 2015. And I was like, what do you mean? I never was told about that in 2015, the same year that they denied me of the ultrasound. And she said, no, it's the same pattern. And I read the actual doctor's note, and within it, it did state that calcifications were found in 2015, that I might need an ultrasound, but he denied me, even though he said, and the radiologist stated that I still needed one. So he covered himself. So I told this particular radiologist in 2019, I will not wait 6 months. You can bring me back in 3 months, because I know, and many of you out there, the reason why I'm telling my story is because that's what I do at Our Scars Speak. And then not just that, you need to be aware that biopsies, which I'm sure some of the doctors probably talked about today, is just a little sample of tissue. So if my tumor is sitting like right here, and they miss it by a little bit, it's not going to pick up that tissue from that tumor. It may pick up some good tissue from another location. So that's why I had a benign result for the first set. But when I came back, my breast surgeon said, no, come back in 2 months, because the radiologist was like, you don't want us to keep on cutting on you. And I was like, if you haven't been through this, don't tell me what I want. And sometimes we do have to get to that point with our medical team. And if they won't listen, then get a second opinion. So I came back in 2 months, and that's when they did see that it was growing. And when that happened, of course, I seen the door that no one wants to see, and the table that no one wants to visit. And I had to really sit down with my breast surgeon, and she told me my diagnosis, which is DCIS, ductal carcinoma in situ, ERPR positive, stage 0, grade 3. Now, given that I was a grade 3 meant that it was growing fast, and knowing that it can possibly come back. I'm at high risk for secondary breast cancer, but I had a double mastectomy. They took everything out from, of course, as much as they could, got clear margins. And so I didn't have to go through any other treatment. But had I done a lumpectomy, then I would have gone through radiation for about 5 or 6 weeks. And then I would have been on tamoxifen. She said because of how much DCIS I had, I probably would have been on it for about 10 years. So I want to kind of get into briefly about what I did in order to get through this whole entire situation, because we need to know about every aspect. We need to know about the disease. We need to know about the different organizations, but hearing stories, which that's what I do, is try to bring stories to people. Those stories can help our medical team. It can help the researchers. It can help different people to understand even some symptoms that they may have never heard of. So, and also things that we can do to possibly help ourselves get through this process, because it is very mentally draining. So I felt like it was time to fight. It was time to keep my empowerment. It was time to be the most resilient I have ever been in my life. So I always like to go through these little things with people. And it's first and foremost, it's a lot to hear. So face your truth and face every emotion that may come with it. You cannot overcome what you will not confront. You just can't. You can't hide from this. And that picture right there was the night that I had found out, and I was sitting in the bathroom floor with a candle and a journal, and I was angry from 2015 situation. I was sad. I was just heartbroken. And I didn't question God, but I asked him what he wanted me to do with it. And I just heard, share your story. And that's what I've been doing ever since. But I always tell people I'm not telling you to accept cancer for the rest of your life, because some people are like, no, I'm not going to accept that. Well, you don't have to, but you got to accept what you do have and find a way to now navigate with this being in your life. So that is your truth, and allow yourself to be emotional. Allow that. So that was basically about the day that I found out. And then also I created a village. I always tell people, have a village, have a team of people that's surrounding you. And this was my team. Over here was my mom, my husband, my sister, my son and his family came from California, my church. And all these gifts were people from online that I had no clue who they were, who just heard my story. And my husband over here driving me to my appointment. I had a team of people. Now, some people do not have people that are around them. So I encourage you to get a support group that can help you, because you're going to need someone. None of us have been put on this earth to be alone. None of us. As much as we may like being alone, we are not designed to be alone. We all need someone. So I always tell people to gather a team. And it's really important, especially when you go to appointments, which I'll get into in a few minutes. But it's important when you go to appointments, because you're advocating. Sometimes we do a good job. Sometimes we kind of don't, because we're there present, but we're not present. So we're physically there, but we're not mentally there, because it's a lot to grasp. So here is the pictures that I said is very graphic. I went through surgery, and the reason why I'm showing this picture, I know that a lot of men may not, I've heard some men talk about getting some plastic surgery. I don't know if y'all put like an expander in or anything to kind of like puff out. I don't know if anybody's done that, but I'm gonna share it. And the reason why I'm sharing is because I have breast implant illness. And that is something that can happen if you have an autoimmune disease, or maybe you don't have an autoimmune disease, but your body rejects the material of the implant. My body rejected it. Up here is what happened. My skin deteriorated. She was saving skin over here so she could recreate the breast. But by the time I got back to the doctor, it was, as you see, complete. It was coming out my chest. And I kept on telling her every day, it's coming out, it's coming out. But COVID was going on, so they would not allow me to have surgery, because this was considered cosmetic. I had breast implant illness. I could barely walk. I could barely, I had a temperature from the day of first surgery. It was so many different symptoms, and capsular contracture, which our bodies do form a capsule around the implants. However, it can push your body can reject it, and the scar tissue will build and start pushing the item out of your chest. So yes, so this is graphic, but I had to be very vulnerable. And that's the other reason why I'm showing this, is because the vulnerability that it took to even live this life, nevertheless show everybody, but to live this out, having someone to help wash me and just, healing. This picture here was the last surgery, thank goodness, but that was what happened to me. So a big thing was self-care. I heard a doctor today talk about oncology exercise. Yesterday, I even had a physical therapist on Our Scar Speak talking about the same exact thing. And it's so true. From a mental health standpoint of what I do on a daily basis with, just qualified mental health professional and then coaching, that is a huge aspect of our like walking, getting out, doing 20-30 minutes of walking, lifting weights. It helps us not only physically, but it also helps us definitely mentally. So self-care is a big part of that, but part of your self-care should be incorporating exercise. The physical therapist last night said something that was very, very pivotal. She said, when you work in a hospital, when someone has a stroke or someone has a heart attack, we get them out of the bed immediately. And I thought back when I used to work in cardiac care unit and the intensive care unit, and we did. Soon as that person could halfway see straight and get up, we had PT in there working with them. That doesn't always happen when someone comes in who has cancer and who's on chemo. And I've seen that too. I've seen where we've had cancer patients and now some of them couldn't get out of bed. We're just saying from the standpoint of what they can do. And some patients, all they can do is sit on the side of the bed, which is fine. That's enough activity for today. Tomorrow, let's try to stand up. And sometimes they did not. When she said that, I thought back and I was like, man, I don't remember us ever doing that with cancer patients. But we did with heart attack and stroke and other, knee replacements, all that. And then also she talked about, just going out and going for a walk. And that's what I did from the time that I found out I had breast cancer up until now. I try to walk every single day, if nothing else. And it helps me mentally. Then also I did meditation. I walked in nature a lot. I did hikes. I prayed. I journaled. You see my husband walking with me. But those were the things that I did to try to maintain, just a good mindset. And then first, the continual tips for journey that I want to leave everyone is to be vulnerable. Let people care for you. Embrace the new you, because you're not the same anymore. You're a different person now. Allow yourself grace as you face the unknown. This is your journey and no one else's. I know there's a lot of people out there who try to tell us, hey, look, try this item, try that item. You should do this. No, listen to your care team, of course. And then also just know that this is your journey and you're going to try to do whatever treatment plan that's best for you. And sometimes people will come back and say, don't get the implant, or don't eat that candy bar or something like that. And it's not to say you can't have a piece of candy, just don't have a lot of sugar. But it's like, a lot of people want to put all these stipulations and you're going through a lot as it is. Continue to advocate for yourself, because your voice matters. And then if you can't advocate for yourself, make sure you have someone to advocate for you and with you. And that's very, very important. And I do tell people to use their portals and get all their medical information, because like myself, I pulled all that information. I thought I had the letter from the radiologist in 2015. I had information, but I did not pull the full note. And that was where I missed it. And some of these portals, the doctors don't put all the information in there. So make for sure that you have all information, and your images you can get on a jump drive now. So just go to medical records and make sure you have everything. I don't care if it's a repeat of what's in the portal. It's better to have it than not have it, especially if you need to get a second opinion. If you have no one to come with you to appointments, let the person know, let your doctor know, hey, look, I'm gonna record this on my phone, because you may have to go back and listen to this to be able to dissect what they're telling you, because it's so overwhelming at that moment. And you may think you're in control and you got it, but I promise you there's something that you probably will miss during your appointment and have forgotten about. And also, the self-care piece, like I said, is so vital. Make for sure, if you journal, do art therapy. I used to journal and I would record myself talking in my phone, because it was just a way of letting things out. So those are some tips that I wanted to leave with you. And then also, here's my information if you would like to find me. That's my website, www.cminerllc.com, and my Gmail. And there's you can find me on Our Scars Speak on the podcast and YouTube channel. It's just plainly Our Scars Speak, as well as social media, or my name, Christina Miner. The services I offers podcasting, of course, where you can come and share your story, and then transitional coaching. And and the organizations I'm affiliated with, which of course you all, whenever you need me, but I also do breast education with Know Your Lemons, which is a great organization, and I'm a co-facilitator for the newly diagnosed group with Here for the Girls, which is an organization, 501c3, for women under the age of 51 who've been diagnosed, because sometimes they too, when they go to certain, groups, now they have more, but when these women found the organization, they were young women, and a lot of the groups had older women, and they couldn't really relate to what was going on in their life, as far as starting career and graduating college and having small children. So they formed this group, and I helped them as well. And lastly, this is something that I wrote, and I just for some encouragement: never give up. As challenging times surround you, know that life still exists. Beauty and growth can sprout up through the complicated issues of life. If you have a little hope and faith, you can still survive and thrive through the difficulties. And that's the reason for that picture. So that's me in a nutshell. That's my story. And those are just some tips that I want to leave with you all. And feel free to connect with me, because I'm all about getting men, your stories, all the men, transgender women, whomever. I'm willing to get their stories out. I heard a lot of people talk about the color pink today. It's never been a favorite color of mine ever in life. It's still not one of mine, but I will use it to talk about. If that's what you want to do, I'm gonna meet you there, but you're gonna hear about everything else, including men. So thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Christina.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was very great. And I didn't know some of the stuff that you had to go through. I know we've talked, but I don't think we went that in depth about your story. I know you interviewed me, so getting to see a little bit more about you is very great. We thank you for joining us today. And we look forward to working together in the future more.
Absolutely.
But
Such a great event. I'm sorry I was late, but I so appreciate you having this event. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And tell all your men, making sure they're checking themselves. Or you check it
Yes,
for
I have
them.
three. I have three young men,
Then
so
you
I
gotta
can
get them
definitely tell
checked.
them. Yes.
Yeah.
Sherry, you got one last thing?
Yeah, one last thing, if I may,
Yes.
Christina, I'm beyond blown away with your testimony, your strength. Being vulnerable like that actually is going to save lives. I would love for us to connect, maybe Brett or Peggy.
Yes,
can
I'll connect
us.
you through email.
And
No
the
problem.
reason is, guys, we've done our due diligence and studies on our African American community. And what was just expressed today is an age-old story of insanity.
Yes.
And I get warrior in my brain, like in my belly, to just sit there and go, stop. These are God's children. And why did they let you go through this type of, listen, I believe the enemy of all patients is, let's just keep an eye on it. Let's wait and see. No, you're seeing it now. You have to take action. You don't need to see later when it gets bigger. You're seeing it now. I don't even care if it's slightly suspicious. Anyways, what I would love, I have a pretty big, on my webpage. I'd love to put you on there as a resource for your community, for my community.
Yes.
But I'd love to have your voice, your story, your podcast. So we will connect later. And I have been looking forever for the right person with the heart, the compassionate, empathetic
sir.
heart that is aligned spiritually, to actually be a voice for me, all my community people that we help, that I don't have the same voice and story. So I have a shitty story. what I went through. But I would be honored to be able to, I won't take your time, but literally have the permission to repost and draw attention to our sisters to follow you, to get encouragement by you. And if that's permissible, maybe we'll connect, and that would be a super big honor for me. Thank
Yes,
you.
same here. Thank you so much.
Yeah, we can share, we'll be sharing her video anyway, that any, I can send to you too, Sherry, whatever you need.
Thank you.
Thank you
You
all.
all have a great
Thank
evening.
you.
Thank you all until
Thank
next
you.
year, but remember, breast cancer never knows it's October, and it can happen at any moment.
Amen. It sure can. Absolutely.
Together we will change the world.
Yes.
Yes.
All right.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.